right. I think I've got to go in this time. Hopefully we got to go in this time. But while we're waiting on everybody to get in here, we might as well do a little... Get us a little bit warmed up while people are getting in here. I think there was a couple people hanging out ready for this to start. If you could, let me know if I do have the audio this time. It looked like it was showing up in one of the other places there. So if I can get a confirmation that I actually have audio this time, I'll get going. But we are here to talk today about the Eddie Van Halen inspired cutting board video that I put out, and kind of how this was done, a little bit of the thought behind it and that sort of thing. So I'll kind of start, the video started out with the big block already being glued up and so forth. And the thought there was, I think everybody's seen enough big glue ups happening. If you watch Paul Jackman's channel, you've definitely seen enough of that. But this board is made out of, I always call it my scrap projects. So these little thin boards that are in there, like every other one, those are some cutoffs from guitar tools I make. And then the big long boards were ones that didn't meet spec for the tools that I make. So the back, or the main body of this board, was really just scrap wood. And then when I turn it around to the front, hang on just a sec, I gotta move one of these windows here to make sure I'm actually showing all this stuff. But when we move around to the front, there's two woods that are on here. So the back is African mahogany, and that's a wood that I use a ton of. The front is maple and rosewood. And the rosewood, I was a little bit, it wasn't scrap, but it was stuff that I bought. It was some actually big pieces of rosewood that I bought for almost nothing. And it's not high quality rosewood. It wasn't sawn very well. But it still kind of eats me up to use rosewood in something. But I would say, as far as the woods go, the rosewood is definitely the least amount of wood that's in here. And then the wood on the sides is a really, really dark piece of African mahogany that I have. So you can see the difference in the sides and the main body of the board, how dark the sides are. I made a guitar out of that really dark piece. It's super heavy, super dense. And I've made little projects with it along the way. I had a massive board of it because I bought all that I could when I saw it. So anyway, that's kind of the construction of the board. And then there's these little silicon feet. These came from Home Depot, I think, Home Depot or Lowe's, and just to kind of round the board out. But that's enough about the actual board itself. What I want to get into here on this video today is how it was constructed and some thoughts behind how it was constructed. And then we'll get into the fusion and how I did the fusion model for the CNC. Now I will say, I originally conceived this project, I conceived doing it with a table saw and making a big board, cutting a slice, gluing in a piece, waiting for it to dry, cutting another slice, gluing in a piece. But when it all came down to it, trying to clamp at those angles and so many times, it would have made a board that was no longer a normal form, like a normal rectangle. Every time you add a piece, it sort of gets the board out of kilter, so to speak. So then I thought about inlaying, and this is a cutoff, so we can look at the detail here. The board is 1.5 inches deep, and the inlays are 3/4 of an inch deep. And obviously I planed a little bit off the top and a little bit off the bottom, but this is how it went together. If I were to do it with a table saw and a dado blade, you could totally do this project with a table saw and a dado blade without the CNC. You would just set the dado blade depth to half the depth, and you'd set your width. It'd be actually a little bit easier in some instances because you'd set your dado widths to say 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch and 1/4. So 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. This one's on the bias, that's why it looks a lot wider. But you could set your dado blade up and do these kinds of slices, whether you wanted to do an Eddie Van Halen inspired something or other, or if you wanted to do something totally different. Totally up to you. But I would suggest, the strength in the main board and doing the inlay and just kind of the, how do I want to say that? The simplicity of it, because it doesn't make all these crazy glue ups that you have to do. That's definitely a way to do it. If you wanted the stripes, whether again it's Eddie Van Halen or any other design, if you wanted them to go all the way through, you could actually just plane off the back side and get down to where the inlays are, and it would look like you actually cut the board apart several times. So that was kind of the thought behind this. This was something that you'll see in the video if you watch the main video, which I think the link is in the description of this one if you want to watch it later. But I did let everything run long off the edge of the board, and the thought there was I didn't want any pockets to deal with or anything like that. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to do something similar, let everything run long and then trim the board to size later on. Give me just a sec here to flip through something here. Okay, good. Everything's looking good in this stream. That's kind of a rare thing. So I'd say it's probably worth a hop into Fusion. So let's do that right there. I think everybody can see my screen. I've actually got 2 files, so I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and kind of run through what I did. So the first thing that I did was set up a canvas. So under Insert Canvas, you can do that, and that'll allow you to put a photo in. So this obviously just came from the Googleator there. I looked for Eddie Van Halen Frankenstrat guitar, and this was the result. And of course, you find a bunch of pictures. This one was like flat on, and it was like, man, that's going to work great for Fusion. So what I did was just literally sketch right over the top of this. So I got myself kind of the overall size of the board that I want is this outer line. The inner line is where I wanted the juice ring, which I'll hold this up. I think you can see it in the corner there. The juice ring just kind of goes around the perimeter to catch any stuff that drips off of whatever you're cutting, whether it's veggies or meat or whatever. So that's the main setup, and then this wide one over here is the excess. That's the overrun. So I wanted all the lines to go out to there. So then I started sketching over the top, and I broke it into a bunch of different sketches. And the way it has to work is you have to inlay just a handful of boards at a time, glue them, let them dry, and then route out of those boards. So everything kind of interlocks and intersects. So I wanted to sketch it in a way that would make sense. I could glue up a few boards at a time and they wouldn't get in each other's way. So this first sketch, and I'm actually going to turn off the canvas just so we can see the sketches really well. So the first sketch is these two, the horizontals there. The second sketch got a little bit more diagonal, but you can see how it interferes with the original sketches that were there, the original 2 sketches that were there. And then this one's just kind of free and clear, which is cool. And then I get into some diagonal ones, so I called this diagonal upper left to lower right. And again, just adding these in. Sorry for all the flashing, guys. That's Fusion for you. But getting those strips laid in over the top, and then slowly adding more stripes as we go. And I think maybe that's my last set of stripes there. I didn't wind up putting these in. I did not like the curve of this one, so I just left it out. And then the next piece was to start forming the body of this thing so that I could visualize it. So I'm going to turn off the sketches for just a second so we can see the main body. So that was an extrusion there of the main body. And then you'll note that as we go through here, whoops, sorry, Fusion's freaking out on me just a little bit. Need to turn that back on. So I'll go back. I took the sketches, those first 2, these guys right here, and extruded them down and made a void. So that makes a space for those pieces to fit. And then we'll forward to the next step, and I extruded those same pieces again down, but instead of making a void when you extrude, and I think we can just click this up here, instead of making a cut, you make a new body, and that new body becomes this, and then you can go into modify appearance, and you can assign, I'll just pull it up. You can assign, I've got 3 different colors of lumber in here, so I can just grab the maple and assign it to that one. If I wanted it to be, I think I called it cherry, but it should have been called rosewood. I think that was just Fusion's name for it. I'll undo that. So then we can step through. So I just created void and then a piece, a void, another piece, a void, and another piece. So it's 2 extrusions per stripe, and we'll fast forward through all of that. And I did want them to overhang, because the machining, you want it to machine past the edge of where you're going to be, and that's the last set of stripes there. And then the next piece, I'm going to roll these bodies up just real quick. The next piece, if we look at our background here, this outer ring is going to be what we use to create that cut. So if I double click on this guy, maybe, it should show me that I selected this outer profile, and then I extruded it down 1 inch is what I had set here, and then we used it as a cut. And when you do that, it does a very nice job of just rounding off the board. I hope that's making sense to everybody. Then we fast forward to, I think this one might have been the step, give me just a sec here to go forward. Okay, yeah, that was, I'll go back 1 step. This was the sketch where I created what I called the top profiles. So if I zoom in here, sorry, I just created a circle, and if I look at the background, that circle is sitting on top of that juice ring sketch that I did, and then the next step is to extrude that profile along the juice ring edge. So I'm going to turn off the sketches. So now you can see in 3 dimensions what that looks like. What's really cool is that Fusion does have a rendering feature, and I'll just click that up here. So you can take a look at what this is going to look like. Sorry, my computer's doing all kinds of stuff here with the live stream, so some of the Fusion is a little bit more latent than we would like, but you can render it in here and get a really good idea of what the board is going to look like as a finished product. Now, I thought I was going to have these extruded all the way through. When I got into the pieces of lumber that I actually had, 3/4 of an inch depth was what was going to work out. I couldn't go all the way through, which is why I decided, I'm going to flip back to my main camera here, which is why that I decided to put these edges on. You don't see these edges in Fusion, and it was just sort of a game time call that I had was, hey, these inlays aren't going all the way through. You can cut the board down and have a 3/4 inch thick cutting board, or you can choose to leave it just as thick as it is now and put some sides on it. And I think it came out, it looks really nice. It's not exactly what I wanted to begin with, but you know what, close enough. So that is how the board itself was modeled up in Fusion. I hope that didn't fly by too fast for anybody, but I think it's worth getting into some of the CAM to see how this was done. And actually, I'm going to flip over to this file here, and we'll fast forward to the end. And I'm going to look at the manufacturing in here. So essentially, I want to make sure everything's turned on that we need to see. Yeah, so what I did is I didn't have to use the 3D model because I was going to set everything at the same depth. So this model just has the backboard, or the base of the cutting board, and then it has all the sketches, and I use the sketches to create everything. So I'm going to turn the sketches off just so we can see this. I'm going to also turn the bodies off. Maybe I'll turn the sketches back on so we can kind of step through this. Essentially, I did the same thing for every set of stripes. It was just picking a different set of contours or sketches. So I'll click into this. Maybe. Come on, Fusion. I know you can do this. Come on, buddy. Oh, here we go. Sorry, these are, no, that's right. So I had a bunch of setups. Maybe let's start with a setup. Will it go? It doesn't want to edit anything here. It could be that my computer's a little overwhelmed. Give us a second. There we go. Edit. Come on, buddy. I know you can do this. We've done this before, buddy. It's not wanting to participate in our little thing here. I apologize. Yeah, it's a little overwhelmed apparently. Oh, here it is. Hang on. It's down on a different screen. Hey, Fusion doesn't suck. Let's go back to the setup here real quick. Hang on. We'll start there. There's our setup. So essentially, we picked a box point. I did everything from the center of this model, and it just seemed like it was going to work out better for me to do that because I had kind of overhanging stuff on all sides. So I just marked a center point. Then I offset it 1/4 of an inch, or 0.2 inches, almost 1/4 of an inch on all the sides, and that was to keep the cam going through the sides of the piece. Pretty simple stuff, and then our post-processing, we can go through that later. But then I picked the body, the actual backboard of the model to use as my stock. So let's grab these guys here. So maybe it'll show up as we do it, maybe not. Just picked a tool, 1/4 inch flat end mill there, and the geometry, I picked those 2 chains. And then I set a top and a bottom. So I picked 3/4 of an inch here off the top height as my bottom height. So that was real easy to set those pockets up in doing it that way. So if we look at the front, you can see, if I can zoom in here, come on, buddy. Yeah, these things get a little touchy. So this top height is this green line, and my bottom height, I don't know if it'll let me see it, but it should be this dark blue line here. Then in passes, I basically set it up to do a maximum step over of 1/8 of an inch. And then I asked it to leave 10/1000ths on the sides, not on the bottom, just on the sides. I think I need to pull this up a little bit further. And then I did multiple depths. Sorry, I'm not going in order here. I did multiple depths 1/8 of an inch at a time. So my router would cut down 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. And all together in this process, in the pocketing process, it would leave this 10/1000ths of an inch here. So I'm going to cancel out of that. Then I did a cleanup pass, which is just a contour. It's to full depth, and it's to take off that last 10/1000ths. So again, using the same tool, same geometry, the height's exactly the same. And then we did it all in one pass on this one. So we didn't use multiple depths. We didn't leave anything behind. We just did it, and it went off really well. So we can look at, I'll turn these sketches off. We can take a peek at this milling path. I'll zoom in. So you can see it took the 1/8 inch steps down, and both of them, and then the next one was just a single pass around the bottom to clean everything up. I see Tom Noble in there. Hey Tom, sorry I'm into the Fusion. Nice to have you with us. It was kind of cool to see some people talking about the Garage Gang this week. It brings back such good memories and good friends, and you know, it's still going on. I think that's just so cool. If I had another car to restore, I'd be very much involved more, I guess, but I do watch all the videos the guys put out, so it's always fun. So then you can see these are broken up in the exact same groups: horizontal group 1, horizontal group 2, the diagonal groups, and we can kind of see these as we step through. I'll turn the body back on. No, I won't. I'll turn the sketches back on. No, neither one of those help at all. But you can step through and see all of the different paths. And actually, if you, yeah, maybe that's it. If we turn this one active, no, it's still not going to show. So anyway, those are all the different pockets. And then I did an outer cleanup one, which was going to cut down the perimeter of the board. And I decided not to use that one and use my table saw instead. It was just, it was going to be a lot of headache on the CNC, and sometimes the CNC is not the right tool. The table saw is definitely the right tool in a lot of instances. So this was the same thing: cut them down 1/8 of an inch at a time, leave 10/1000ths of an inch, and then come in on the last one and clean it up. But the juice ring is here, and that was all done with a ball end mill. So we can kind of click into this one, maybe. Click into this one and see it's a 1/4 inch ball end mill, and I think I wound up actually using a 1/2 inch ball end mill. But the the G code was the same. I just brought it down real slow. I tricked the CNC machine to thinking it was a little bit higher than it really was off of the piece so that the tool wouldn't make a contact. And I just ran the same path like 6 times, just moving the CNC down like a 1/16 of an inch at a time till I got the depth that I wanted. And of course, I had to overcut the depth just slightly because I knew I was going to plane the top. So you cut it down a little bit more than you normally would, and then you plane the top down to size, and everything works out. So that is all of the CNC, the G code, the CAD, the CAM, all of those kind of fun things. I suppose we could step through just how I do all of these things in terms of output. And I do use, so if we just looked at the juice ring and made it current, for output for post-processing, one or more we'll just continue anyway. Essentially, I've got a post-processor that works for my digital wood carver. So it started with somebody else's code, and then I edited the post-processor to make it do a few things that I wanted it to do. In the properties down here, it has some things. I never really messed with them. I set it up once. And then, yeah, it just outputs. So if I said OK, I think it'll pop up. Yeah, we'll just save it to there. Why not? Oh, hang on. I changed the thing where it would bring up brackets. But anyway, in the old days, it used to bring up brackets and it would show you all the G code. There's really nothing there to talk about. But let's flip back to the main camera. Maybe. I got to go somewhere in here. Yeah, there we go, main camera. So essentially, that is the long and the short of how it was made. It's an inlay board. It's not a true cut-through type of board. But that doesn't, I guess that's not good, bad, or indifferent. But yeah, that's how it was put together. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. I had a ton of fun putting it together. I don't know if anybody here in the live stream has any questions for me or wants to chat about something in particular. I'm more than happy to sit here for just a minute and answer some questions. I don't see any popping up, but there's always this weird latency. But yeah, we can kind of leave it there. Nobody's got anything. There we go. All right, well, cool. I will see everybody later, and I'll give you one of those because it was definitely a guitar-related project. Take care, everybody.